Stand here and look at me in the eyes and tell me that this will be limited to the class that we're going to put here and it's not going to go everywhere else.
You're talking too fast and I can't hear what you're saying.
I have 2 minutes, but yeah, if you can stay here.
Technically, there are no rules right here.
Okay, if you can stay here and you can tell me that these classes are going to be that it's only not going to spread to other schools, so that it's only going to be here, then yeah, maybe I have then I'll say yeah, it won't affect other people. But the fact of the matter is that there's people who are deciding whether they want to give money to schools or not. And if the schools start funding schools and schools stay open and there's people being taught in the classes, then they're going to say, oh, the schools are still open. So we don't need money to give them to those schools. But if we take a look at who's studying in those classes, then it's going to be people who can afford to pay them. So we leave a whole minority out of this thing. So that's my answer to it, that the people are being affected to it.
Okay, why is that true, what you just said? What makes it true?
Common sense, that if you're funding, so if someone is asking you for money to do something, but then you see them having money to do that same thing, why are you just going to continue giving them money?
What about getting a Pell Grant?
No, can you answer the question? If someone's
think about
asking,
it a second. It's all the students who go into the quote-unquote contracted classes aren't going to be eligible for Pell Grants. That comes from the federal government.
but you're still taking money.
I want to make a point of information, Judge Finkel. Your Pell Grant is not going to go up if you take contract education classes because the state doesn't see these classes. The state isn't looking at them. They don't count in your financial aid. So if you're taking 12 units of classes and 3 of those units are contract educated classes or self-funded classes, my bad. The state only sees 9 units of classes.
Now you're talking about the kinds of things which should lay the foundation for your preparation of your fact sheet.
Sure.
It's actually in that
But that's
frequently
still
asked
an
questions.
argument. It's an argument.
These are issues that you have to put on the table.
Okay, Stacksville, Marco, and then Karen.
Well, I actually wanted to kind of set up a basis, a starting point as to far to move along with the solution, kind of taking what Judge Finkel said, of not only looking at the short-term solution, but also simultaneously looking at the long-term solution. And actually, I think what Cameron had proposed, whether two-tier to front-tier, I think had a good bit of both. I don't know if you guys would want to start there or something related to that, right? At least I want to hear why there was such a grand opposition to that. Because from my understanding, it did have both a short-term and a long-term.
Well, yeah, okay, point of information. That presentation should have been discussed at this meeting, and we can still discuss it because it's relevant to what we're talking about. Cameron, it's your turn to talk now, or unless you're done.
Was I? Okay. Where I left off was the initiative. Where I left off 45 minutes ago. So students need to make an initiative collectively and take it to the state of California. And we lost quorums. We don't have time for it anymore.
He's coming back.
Yeah, he might be coming back.
He left his stuff there.
All right, so I'm not looking very well. All right,
So you are. He's coming back. I don't think he left.
well, let me just go.
He's still here.
Okay, one of my favorite quotes is from Lord of the Rings 2 Towers. And it says, well, we have no time, and I hope Mr. Finkel's listening, well, we have no time to ponder the riddles. Let us bear board in your way, Gimli says. And then Aragorn says, but after that, we must guess the riddles if we are to choose rightly. In meaning, we need to think about this. We need to, in order to, we can't just rush into a decision because that is ruled by passion. When I was talking about earlier passion politics, because we need to do something. That's not where we are as people, as a society. We need to guess at the riddles. We need to get to the root of the problem. Why is it happening? And then you can choose rightly. That is the difference between a right and wrong decision here. And we're not doing that. We're rushed.
So how do you get to the core? How do you get to the core?
Well, the core is the state, isn't it? I'd say so. I'd say it is. And it's hard because the way the associated students set up, it's a bureaucratic process. It's not democratic. It's honestly not. We had no say in this. This was circumvented. This is ridiculous. I'm upset about it. And regardless of my presentation right now, just getting the present. God.
I wanted to reply to Josh on how he was talking about, you know, we should be doing what the students need and not what other people are thinking about, or, you know, we should look into the students' best interest. And that's something that I wanted to bring up to the board. How are we reaching out to our constituents? I mean, I know we were elected here, so we represent them, and essentially if we wanted to, we could just base what we do off of our own opinions. But have we, I wish the director of publicity was here, have we publicized anything about what's been going on at the state, at the local level? DJ, have we, DJ? No, we haven't.
Oh, he's not
How are we going to, you know, FA, Faculty Association, Classified, Administration, they're going back and they're talking amongst themselves. I mean, we are limited to 16 people. How are we talking with the students? Are we going to take a survey? Do we even want to ask the students? Or what would we ask the students? Secondly, I'm sorry that I made it seem that we can only choose between long-term or short-term, but it just seems to me that no one's been talking about either. They're just talking about, I'm opposed to this. I don't think this is right. I don't want to do this. Why aren't we talking about, okay, then what should we do? Are we going to attack a long-term solution and a short-term solution? Are we only going to attack a long-term solution? Are we only going to take the short-term solution? What do you guys want to do? And I also just want to mention, I completely disagree with what Yian said. I'm only here for a short amount of time, so I'm going to do a short-term interest. No, I want the associate students of Santa Monica to prosper even when I'm gone from here. In 100 years, I want them to be well off. And if I make a decision now that screws them over in the long term, I'm sorry, I would cry. That I would see my position as a director here, as vice president, as a failure. And also, what is the factual basis for contention against contract education that would work to detriment subsidized classes? Is that what your question was?
Subsidized students.
Subsidized
right?
students, subsidized classes. I mean,
Yeah, it would help me to understand.
Students receiving a blog waiver fee.
well, it's just, I mean, I don't want to go with the whole argument common sense, but like if you think about it, it's like you're just going off the path of public education funded by the state, by the people. You're going off on a different path. That's why there's contention about it. That's why. Because you're not following public education. Public education is funded by the public, not by your own pocket. I don't have pockets deep enough to do that. I'm sorry.
I don't know what that means.
It means I can't pay for it. Joshua.
And you have to demonstrate what that means. I don't get it.
Joshua.
My board has to understand that sooner or later. I need help.
Oh my God. Oh my God, Joshua.
That's something you should hear. That's what he's saying, and that's something you should start to work on.
Sure. I mean, let me show you how poor I am. Joshua.
So the question is, how is this going to harm those receiving bog waivers?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, I suppose it would harm them by hurting the institution. This simple politics, slippery slope. It's saying inside memos, it says how this is going to change the landscape of education.
Okay, if what you're saying is that by allowing contract ed courses, that will send a message to Sacramento to stop subsidizing students. Is that the slippery slope you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right, I want you to picture, just for a minute, is Sacramento doing that?
They're already doing it.
No, listen to me.
Or they can easily.
It eliminates all financial assistance to the community college system. Let's say that happens. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock,
That wouldn't happen.
the legislature,
It's an
signed by the governor, eliminates state aid to community colleges. What do you think would happen?
Well, we're watching it happen incrementally presently. We're watching it. And to keep putting it off into the near future, it hasn't happened yet. Sir, it's not going to happen at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's an incremental decrease in education, decrease in funding. We're witnessing it presently. This is it. This is what it looks like, sir. And the problem is that so many of us are being cycled through. We don't have the time to care.
But can you demonstrate for me today one case that you know of where a student lost their subsidized education at a community college because of a contract education program?
I think it's that, okay, forgive me, I'll try to answer it, but I think it's a reframing of the issue. I think dwelling on that alone, I'm sorry?
All I'm really trying to do is to help you focus on how to prepare a fact sheet.
Okay.
It sets forth the issues, the real issues. And you have to get concrete at a certain point. That's really all I'm saying. I'm not trying to
sorry, but
suggest you what the
speaker's-
answer is.
The speaker's time has
Thank you, I yield my
elapsed.
time. Thank you, sir.
Karen?
Okay,
It's a good point.
so everyone needs to know this. Last year, AB 515, Assembly Member Brownlee wrote a legislation which was contracted at the state level. You know that out of 40 votes for it, the majority of the votes, the overwhelming majority of those votes were from reactionary Republicans, who are the ones that aren't voting to fund education. So, I mean, these are people with law degrees. These are people with law degrees, and this is an educated group of people who know what they're voting on. The overwhelming majority of the people who supported AB 515 were conservative Republicans who do not fund education now in the legislature because of Prop 13 and the supermajority requirement. So when we talk about local solutions, the local solution should be something like radical organizing, right? Like getting people registered to vote, having information sessions where we educate each other on ballot initiatives, right? So we know what progressive tax initiatives exist and what would the implications of them be. What candidates are running for our